Hi fellows, and welcome back to part number 2 on fixing the Landrover Defender rear axle problem. And the specific problem we were facing is that we were noticing a lot of backlash on the diff and a lot of clunking sounds each time we were changing gears or were stopping or accelerating. In part number 1, we diagnosed the problem and we identified that the rear half shafts were actually worn out. The spline was worn out where it's fitting to the actual flanges. That was the main cause of the problem. And in this video, we'll put it all back together. Now, I did order a lot of parts meanwhile, and ordering parts is not always easy. But if you live in Belgium or in the Netherlands, I can actually recommend the Defender shop. They have very good prices. They are located in the Netherlands and a very good service. In fact, I picked up the parts after 3 days and I even got a cup of coffee when I picked them up. So that was really good. Now, price-wise, I've got for the half shafts, 2 of them, the gaskets and the flanges, together with a new prop shaft, a total price of about 330 euros. Now that is a very good price. If I was to buy exactly the same stuff in Belgium in a store in Roeselaar, then I pay about 1,000 and more euros. So really think about it. I'm not making a commercial for the Defender shop, but still think about it if you live in that area because they deliver very good service. Nevertheless, I got the parts now, and this is what we're now going to do. We're going to put the stuff all back together in a very specific sequence. Well, first of all, we'll have to mount the diff. Then we'll mount the half shafts, followed by the flanges, and then finally we'll put the prop shaft up. Now, regarding the prop shaft, if you looked at my video part 1, you will have noticed that I said the prop shaft is good, there's no play on it. Well, actually there was a very tiny little bit of play actually on the cross joint here. And I decided to change it anyhow because I'm under the car and I'm just reworking things, so I might as well replace it. And really for the price that this is only costing, I don't think this was an issue. So I'm going to replace the prop shaft as well. Now the oil you're going to need for the diff is about 2.4 liters of axle oil, 8W90, and I would recommend that you use the GL5 or the GL4 oil. And that basically is it, and then we will do a test ride and everything should be hunky-dory. So let's get on with it. So here's the differential. We cleaned it up a bit, and while you do so, you have to make sure that you get no debris or dirt inside the diff, because otherwise it isn't going to last very long. So now we are about ready to mount it. I got a paper seal here, but as you can see it's already broken. It's pretty flimsy, so I am not going to use the seal. However, I will use a liquid seal or a liquid gasket. High quality, high performance, and I'm going to put a little bead on the differential underneath the car, and then we mount the stuff together. We could also do it on the differential here, but it's going to be a bit more difficult because once you mount this under the car, and especially if you're laying under it, it is fairly heavy, and you may actually rub it out. But the thing we will do though is degrease the edge here. The best product I found to degrease it is actually the stuff you use to clean the brake pads or the brakes. So let's take a bit of cloth, spray it on there, and then we'll clean it all around nicely. All right, so now we're good to go. So I'm going to get under the car and put the bead up, and then we mount the diff. Now when you mount the diff, you got to remember the position it was in when you dismounted it. Now in my case, I looked at it and I have the holes here, and I know these holes were horizontal aligned with my left wheel of the vehicle. So keep an eye on that one once you take your diff out. So we are under the car, and this is where we have to mount the diff. So you need to clean up all this, and we'll use the spray, the Brake Clean Pro, to clean it all up. So you may have noticed that I put some cloths inside, so not too much of the debris is falling inside the housing of the diff. So I'm going to take this out now, and we'll clean it all up at the inside. just to make sure that we have no debris on its side, because that would not be good for the diff. I just want to have a close look inside and see if everything is good, and it is. So first thing is to put the bead up. And also at the inside, and go around the outside. Now I have 15 minutes to finish this, and now we can put the diff up. You have to fiddle a bit with it eventually, but it will go on eventually. There you go. And we go around, put all the bolts back up. So that's all done. So now what's left is to torque them down to the right torque. So let's do that. So the diff is now mounted, and now we can mount the half shafts. That is just sliding the half shaft into the axe and gently push it in there until it locks and the splines are sliding into the diff. But I'm going to spray some anti-corrosion on it first. And then I'll slightly wipe it off because it doesn't have to be too wet. And then we slide it in. But once you slide it in, make sure that the end that goes in is not the end with the groove in, because that's where the circlip has to go. And slide it in very gently. There's no need to force this. Now we need to find, there we go. See how easy that is? Now it's in. And this is how it should sit. Clean it up a bit. I'll put up a bit of grease, anti-corrosion. This is what we call corrosion block. Not too much, just a little bit. And then we can put the gasket up, and that will hold it nicely in place. And on the flange, this is the new flange, I will also put some anti-corrosion blockage up, and we put some around there as well, and we all set. And now we are ready to bolt it down, and this is how simple all that really is. I'll move this a bit back, so let's put it up and make sure we can put the circlip up. You need to be sure that it sits really in the gap. Put the bolts up. I'm not going to tighten them up all the way because I want to do this proper. And if you can tighten them in a sequence, it is a lot better. Now you will have to block the wheel because it's turning and you can't put the torque up. That's why you will have to have a bar to block it. So now we need to put it to the right torque, and you need to check on your vehicle how much that is in your manual. So put a bar or something in between so that the wheel can't move. And then use your torque and start to torque them down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And check them again. And this is one side done. So now we'll do the other side, and then we are ready to put the drive shaft up or the prop shaft, and then finally we put the oil in. The diff is mounted, the half shafts are in, we bolted down the flanges, we torqued them down to the proper torque level, and then we put the wheels up. And as you might remember in part 1, we did a little test with this rear wheel, and we had really this clunking sound. Now let's listen what this one does. That does. Sounds really good, doesn't it? And remember, there's a little bit of sound in the back, but that's normal. That's the gears in the differential because there is no oil in it for the moment. So I think this will be good. So next now is to mount the prop shaft. So before we mount the prop shaft, I'm going to grease the spline, and we'll grease the cross joints. It's a bit easier to do it here than actually doing it while it's in the car. The prop shaft is connected, and we bolted down the 4 bolts between the prop shaft and the differential, and we did the same thing at the other side. So the prop shaft is now connected, and the last thing to do is now to fill up the differential with the oil. Putting the oil in the differential is quite easy. You need just to remove this nut here, and it's a square nut, so you need a special key like this one, and then just undo it. And then now we have to put a tube or a hose in to fill it up. So we're going to need 2.2 to 0.5 liters of axle oil, and that's going to be a bit tricky to put it in, but we'll try anyway. So that's a long and boring process. So how much should go in? That's always the question. It should just be up to the edge of the filling gap. So I'm just going to feel it. Well, it looks like it's almost there. I'm just going to give it a little bit more, and that will be about 2.2 liters. Let me feel again. Yeah, so that's about right. You can always check it with a flashlight, and you should see it sitting up to the rim. So fellows, I took the Landy on a spin, and everything is all right. The clunking is gone, so now I'm quite happy with it. It took us about 4 or 5 hours to fix everything on this car, but at the end it was a big success. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I would like to see you again on my next video. Keep watching my YouTube channel on Landrover Defender, and if you're interested in Lotus Elise, I have a YouTube channel on that as well. So thank you again for viewing.